Welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I am your host, Marshall Ramsey. I'm editor-at-large and editorial cartoonist with Mississippi Today. I tell you what, if you're a little bit familiar with the Jackson area and you start heading down 49 and you're going to the coast, you see this beautiful scene of a barn and some fencing and a farm, and you see the sign for Piney Woods School. Well, if by now you don't know about Piney Woods School, you're about to find an awful lot more about it. And I'm very excited to have with us today the fifth president of Piney Woods School, Dr. Will Crossley, who is the first person who went to Piney Woods School who became president of Piney Woods School, and also an incredibly talented up and coming. I don't even think that's the right term.
No, that's right.
Yeah. You got a documentary on Hulu, so I think you were here and you and I. We have JJ Anderson here as well, and JJ, congratulations. Did I mention you have a documentary on Hulu? Dr. Crossley, did I mention, congratulations, you have a documentary on Hulu as well.
Starring in a documentary on Hulu.
That's right. Sacred Soil, the Piney Woods School Story. It's debuted on February 23rd. It's now on Hulu. Congratulations to you both. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thanks for having us.
Oh yeah, this is great. And like I said, I hope that this is as huge as the 60 Minutes piece was in 92? I think it was.
Yeah.
It was back a few years ago. But I know that was like boom, and that helped in all kinds of different ways. And this is such a neat idea and such a great documentary.
No, that was in the mid '90s, and but such a long time ago, and so many people don't know who we are. Have never heard of Piney Woods, don't know what we do, and so this is an awesome way to be able to share who we are with the world.
You grew up in the south side of Chicago. How did your family find out about Piney Woods?
Well, the south side of Chicago is the north side of Mississippi.
That's true. That's true. There is like 1 degree of separation between the two.
And so I think, well, in Chicago, it really was the church.
Yeah.
It really was churches who were familiar with Mississippi, familiar with Piney Woods, and many of the sort of mores and traditions of the African American community traveled north from Mississippi to Chicago. And so we really found out from people at church. I actually didn't know growing up that my family was from Mississippi. But I later, when I was a student at Piney Woods, discovered that my dad had grown up in Summit, Mississippi, just north of Macomb. Mm-hmm. And so Mississippi became, at that time, a second home. Now, I suppose, my first home. And so here we are.
JJ, you're from San Diego, California.
I am.
Yeah, that's actually, my wife and I moved there from San Diego. When we moved here to Mississippi, we were trying to make that connection a little bit. How did this get on your radar, and how did you get involved with this project?
Yeah, that seems to be the big question. I do understand why people are so curious, but actually, my dad went to an all-black boarding school when he was growing up, and it was Boggs Academy in Georgia, which closed down in the 80s. And I come from a long line of women on my father's side who went to Tuskegee, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm a research fanatic. I love looking up archival imagery. And so one day I just started thinking about my dad's experience at this boarding school, started reminiscing on Tuskegee, and then I came across Piney Woods, and I learned that it was one of very few last standing black boarding schools, that it is the largest. Their success rate was absolutely incredible to me. Their mission of developing a child head, hearts, and hands. And I got on the phone as soon as I could with Dr. Crossley, because I just thought people have to know about this place, right? And the rest is history.
Your filmmaking, and I've seen little snippets and beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous. And you really specialize in giving women and people of color voices.
Absolutely.
Because I can imagine that, because you would like to, when you were young, you would have liked to have been able to see inspiration, the people that were like you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's about giving voice. I think it's just about creating space and uplifting, because everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that platform, right? When I was growing up, I was really interested in coming of age documentaries because I was an only child.
Yeah.
And that's what kept me company. It was like, Stand By Me, really these films that actually my mom grew up with, but that she passed down to me because all we had were VHSs.
Hey, watch it now.
But there were always themes I could relate to, but the specifics were not relatable, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So growing up as a brown woman, as a Black woman, I really wanted to kind of dive a bit more into that and explore that more. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that you've structured this, there were little things, even in the trailer, I could see there'd be like images and shots of modern day, and then boom, you would hit it with like something from maybe 80 years ago or 100, and it was like the same thing. And
Isn't that crazy?
It's a way for you to be able to get the tradition and the history in there while telling a modern story.
Absolutely. When I first spoke to Dr. Crossley, it didn't take long for me to realize and know how passionate he is about the history.
Yeah.
This could have easily been a historical documentary, but I had to think very deliberately and intentionally on our messaging and what people are going to be able to relate to, right? How to get their attention. And so you do get some of the history of Piney Woods, but it's 115 years worth of history.
Yeah.
Like that's insane, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to think of other ways to incorporate it, not just history, but legacy, like showing how these kids are carrying on these traditions. And I did that through the imagery that you're speaking of.
So the documentary, it's about an hour and a half long.
It's about an hour and a half,
About an hour and a half long,
give or take, yeah.
Which is a perfect length.
Okay, thank you, Marshall.
It's a perfect, no, but how did you structure it? How did you structure the storytelling through it?
Yeah, so we open up on devotion, which is a very important practice that Dr. Crossley and his team, start with at the beginning of every day. But I would say, and let's go back to general terms, I knew before I came, and having visited and done research, what I would say the important time markers are.
Yeah.
Right, and as far as high school goes, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about arrival, thinking about settling in, thinking about these big like events that we as kids hold so close to our hearts, like prom, Valentine's Day, right? And so I really structured the film around those. I think I named the acts prior to coming. It was arrival, roots, and release.
Ooh,
right?
I like that.
So really digging into those aspects of high school. And then the structure from there really revolves around the kids and their journeys. So a lot of it was just me listening to them and observing them and understanding what was important and their personal experiences, and then just kind of intertwining that with the acts that I had created beforehand. Yeah.
So
can I piggyback on this for just a second, because I've already received some criticism that somehow this film is sort of a sugar-coated version that we somehow put together
Really?
about Piney Woods, right? And the truth is, as JJ was just saying, I was actually pushing for more of the history and more of that, and she went in a kind of different direction. And it wasn't, we really from the beginning, we said this is who we are, and we just invited them to come and capture that. And so we're really the subject of the documentary. Piney Woods did not. We had no role in that, and so you'll see things that were, I probably would have cut.
Yeah. That's why I'm shocked. I said, who sugarcoat? That's crazy. Yeah.
And clearly I would have cut. But I think all of it together, it does tell, it tells our story, and it tells it through the voices of our kids. And I wouldn't have done it that way, but I think it's done marvelously. And so anyhow, I just thought that connected with what you were just talking about.
I was just thinking about that. I mean, I'm not an expert on film or really an expert on anything, don't think of it. But I would just think if I were in 8th or 9th grade, I would want to see what life is like for somebody who's just like me at Piney Woods. I mean, the history is important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But to see, what they're doing, how they're reacting, is this something for me? And the way it looks like it's set up, that's exactly what they're going to get.
Absolutely. And I think, one of my big goals, of course, is to get funding for Piney Woods, right?
Yeah,
and in order to do that, we have to think about the present and we have to think about the future.
That's right.
The history is there. It's written. You referenced the This Is Your Life with Lawrence C. Jones segment. There was a 60-minute segment that I think dove into the history. And so I really wanted to try an alternative, and that was channeling the kids. I think that's what's most relatable, right? And then giving them the opportunity to stand in their power. Piney Woods empowers these kids in a way I've never seen before at any other school. And I think the power of Black educational institutions is this this atmosphere that they create, where friends, well, actually strangers, turn into friends, turn into family, and there's this incredible level of self-confidence that the kids walk away with because they're learning about each other, because they're learning about their histories, and they're given this space to advocate for themselves, right? So that's the route I took.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works, you know.
We'll
but
find-
this man had they truly. I'm still taken aback by the sugarcoating comment, because truly, I mean, he.
Well,
gave
no, and I can understand why someone who's gotten glimpses of it, or they've seen the trailer and they've seen
right,
the voices
exactly,
of the kids,
yeah.
might have that impression. And when I finally saw it, I knew that she had use exactly the right voice to tell the story for the reason you gave, right? Other young people looking at this will want to know, what is this experience like? But I also thought about the fact that when we want to expose someone to who Piney Woods is, we bring them to campus and we give them to our kids, right? And the students tell them, right? The students do tours, the students sit with them in our dining hall. Right. If I'm going to an event, I love to take students with me because students will tell you who Piney Woods is better than anyone else could. And so in reflection upon how the story was put together, I thought it was done exactly the best way that we could tell our story.
Piney Woods has had some incredible challenges throughout the years. I mean, everything from tornadoes to even I gotta say, Lawrence C. Jones's, that story you told me on the radio when I interviewed you a couple of years ago, how they came to lynch him, and he ended up, by the end of it, they gave him money. I was like, number one, he's good. He's really good. He's very smooth.
A high watermark.
But I mean, obviously, and you've had some wonderful benefactors, everybody from Charles M. Schultz, who does Peanuts. I mean, you got Snoopy Hall, which I think is fantastic. What are the challenges that this is going to be a big boost? I mean, it really is. But what are some of the challenges that you're facing today?
So, I mean, the big one is financial.
Yeah.
A lot of people, aren't aware of a sort of dip that took in our resources because there was money in WorldCom some years ago. And so that imploded, and it created problems. And but true to Piney Woods form, perseverance and this notion of tenacity, and so the first building that was built at Piney Woods out of donated lumber, shortly after it was constructed, and they had an opening ceremony, and the next week a tornado comes through and takes it out, right? And so what do? Right? We rebuild. And that's been the story of Piney Woods. Yeah. And to some extent, I think that's been the story of African Americans in the state and in this country, right? And so we rebuild, and that's what we're in the process of doing. And we need the resources to do that. But the real core of it is in the people, right? Which again, our young people, and all of that is why the way the story is told is so profound.
JJ, I mean, how did Hulu come about? Because I mean, congratulations. I mean, like I said, I know you've got a great team that worked on this, but when you got that call saying, "Hey, hi, this is so and so from Hulu,"
that call never existed.
Okay. I didn't know how that happened.
But so like I said, upon learning about Piney Woods, I got on the phone or on a Zoom with Dr. Crossley as soon as I could with my management / production team, and we spoke to him probably for about an hour, and he graciously invited us down. This was what year was this?
So a while ago, it was
one.
I think so. Yeah, I was gonna say it was over 2 years ago.
He invited us down for graduation, gave me the opportunity to interview some of his students and his staff members. Again, it just hammered into me like, yes, the story needs to be told, and actually it needed to be told 10 years ago. And so I worked very diligently on putting this project together for about a year. put together a deck, wrote everything out and just talked about it to whoever I could.
Yeah.
Until I came across a friend who said, you know what, I have someone who went over to Anscape, which is our release partner. They're a Black-led media company from Disney and ESPN. I have someone over there, they might be interested, they're looking for content. So I said, this is it. I took it very seriously because I want what's best for them, and they need to be here for as long as possible. And I got on that call and I pitched my butt off. And on that call, they were like, you know what, we think we're gonna do it. It wasn't even like,
Nice.
let's do a call back. It was like, this story needs to be told. Let us figure out what we can bring and how we can make that happen. And on our second Zoom, it was greenlit. And they were like, but you have to start in 3 months. Great. So that's how it goes.
Because when they came down the campus, actually several times and they came down, they said, look, we're about to pitch this, and if it gets picked up, we got to know this thumbs up is real. And just said, yes, it's real. We want to tell. And but they thought it was going to take like a year or something to find the funding. And she calls back, I don't know, maybe 2 months later or something, and says, we're ready. We're in. and so it happened far before we had anticipated. It was going to occur. So
So it was a learning, I think, for all of us in motion.
Yeah.
Obviously, Piney Woods School, the staff is stretched and they love it. They love being there, but they are stretched, right? And so to take on this project and to take on an entire crew of strangers who are coming in and kind of disrupting things, and we're trying not to, but to take that on was such a big task for them. And I'm really grateful. I'm grateful.
How did the kids react? Because I remember watching, Last Chance U when I was over at East Central, Mississippi. It was like, and I've talked to Bill Courtney, who was in the documentary Undefeated that won the Academy Award a few years ago up in Memphis. Once again, he said, I don't know, there were a couple of people in skinny jeans followed us around with cameras for a year. And then they shot about 200 hours and they disappeared. And next thing you know, I'm on walking the red carpet. Yeah. He said, but how did that process go? Because I know how kids are. It's like, there's a camera. Hey,
Hey,
did the kids eventually kind of tune it out? Did they kind of just like, it just became part of their daily life?
I think it did, and there were measures that we took to kind of get it there. Anytime we would come or we would restart, we would walk around with the cameras for a couple of days, shooting, but not really, just to get them comfortable.
Yeah.
And so the kids, they feel like hired actors, honestly. I think there's only a couple times when they touched their mic but they were so committed because they knew what the bigger picture was and they loved their school, right?
Yeah.
So it was more about me making sure I was meeting their standards and the Piney Woods standards, to be honest with you.
Which that says a lot about Piney Woods. They love their school.
They love their school. So it was, those kids who I think are highlighted a bit more. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was fun, but it was a job.
Yeah.
So they have their schoolwork, their extracurriculars, and then they have to spend time with us. And
it became controversial because we said, you don't get a break from your school expectations. Just because somebody's following you with a camera, you still have to do everything you would have done had they not been here.
Yeah, but that's great training for real life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I tell you what, so last week, we talked about JSU's Bambi at the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Now Piney Woods is getting this exposure on that. It's a good week for Mississippi. Really
yeah. I got a note from, I'm also on the board of Community Foundation here. And I got a note from one of our board members because I circulated this release to everybody I knew, right? And so I got a note saying, this is really good for Piney Woods. But I'm really, really excited because this is good for the state of Mississippi. Right. Yeah. Because the state does not, it doesn't always have the best reputation for things out in the world. And usually it's cited for obesity or it's cited for other health. And so here is a story of, success, really, 115 years and still making, right? In our community, and that was true for Lawrence Jones when he and here it is still true today that this place shows what the people of this state are capable of.
Yeah, like I said, you know, Piney Woods Story for year upon year upon year has been successful. And I know that you came down, you were like on the board. They said, hey, would you fill in temporarily? And then, you know, be careful what you volunteer for.
It's yeah.
But it's turned out, but like I said,
Usually.
but it's not like you've kept it alive. You've helped it thrive. And this is, like I said, another step on that. And I got to ask you, because I remember when I grew up in Atlanta, so I'm used to the South, but I was out in San Diego, and I remember the first time I flew in here, I was like, this place is the greenest place I've ever seen in my life. What was your impression when you first came to Piney Woods?
That's a great question. One, I thought Piney Woods was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
I saw where it needed help, but what I felt was its spirit,
Yeah.
right? And so when Dr. Crossley is talking about, you know, receiving a note that this is good for Mississippi, as a Westerner, as someone from California, I wanted to be very, very mindful of the image that I was portraying. A lot of the questions I get are actually around, well, why didn't you show the school struggle more? Because that's all you would remember, and those are the narratives that you expect out of Mississippi. But that's not the area we're staying in. Our goal is to thrive, and like you said, when Dr. Crossley came in, it wasn't just about having Piney Woods survive, but thrive.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the lens I chose. But as far as what I thought about Piney Woods, I saw the potential and I saw the success for what it is, and that's what I wanted to uplift. Yeah.
I'd say any struggle that's going on there generally is leading to almost like grit in an oyster. It's creating something beautiful and something that makes the kids stronger too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see that, and I am very definitely looking forward to watching the documentary.
Thank you so much, Marshall.
So we're wrapping up here in the last minute or so forth. How can people find out? Obviously, go to Hulu.
Streaming on Hulu, yes.
Sacred Soil, the Piney Woods School Story. So that's pretty easy to find. Obviously, I want folks to find out more about you too. What's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so I'm not big on social media, but it is JJX Anderson.
Okay.
And you can go to my website, JJ@Directed by JJ. But I'm around. I'm just making art and hanging out with cool people like Dr. Crossley. You know, I'm in and out. But yeah, that's me.
And of course, you know how
I'm easy to find. Certainly through Piney Woods, PineyWoods.org.
Yeah, that's right.
Is our site. And then LinkedIn is probably the best. Probably the best space to see us and reach us. And we hope that folks will come and join and become a part of this community.
And there'll be a way for people to donate as well.
Yes. When you go to our website, you'll see the central button.
The central button.
The central button will say donate.
Hey, we're a nonprofit. I know how that rolls. Well, I just wanted to say this is exciting. Number one, it's good to talk to you again because I really enjoyed our last interview. It's very nice to meet you. You now have a new fan.
Oh, Marshall. Vice versa.
And like I said, I've now known you for about 30 minutes, and when the whole sugarcoating thing came up, I was like, no way she would ever sugarcoat anything. I have a feeling you probably should.
I was actually nervous to send it to Dr. Crossley because I was like, oh, Lord, I know. But, it is what it is. And the work that Piney Woods School does is incomparable.
That's right.
And so I just want people to be aware of it, support Black educational institutions, support Piney Woods. They're vital to our success as a whole. So
I think that's a great way to wrap this up.
thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Marshall.
Hey, and thank you for watching another edition of Mississippi Stories. If you'd like to see any past editions or maybe check out some of our reporting, you can go to MississippiToday.org. Oh, yeah, you can see some so-so cartoons as well. Y'all have a great week. Come back next week for another episode.